So in August of 2022, I thru hiked the West Highland Way, which is a long distance hike up in Scotland, which runs from Milngavie near Glasgow up to Fort William in the Highlands. The trek is around 150 kilometres in total, and it generally is recommended to take 5 to 7 days to complete. It's probably one of the more popular multi-day hikes in Scotland, just because it has really good accessibility. It's not overly remote because you do pass through a few towns on most days, and also it's just not overly challenging in terms of incline compared to some of the other multi-day hikes that you could do in Scotland. There are definitely some more challenging and remote sections of the trail, particularly in the second half, but I think if you've got a background of doing multi-day hikes or just keeping fit and active, you shouldn't find it too difficult. So I ended up hiking about 167 kilometres and completed about 5,200 metres of elevation, which took me 5 days to complete. I also created a silent hiking film to help document this trip and to just show Scotland's beauty, and you can find that in the links below. So I got a West Coast Avanti train from London Euston up to Glasgow Central. Once I got to Glasgow Central, I walked 5 minutes to Glasgow Queen Street station, and then I got one of the local trains up to Milngavie, which is the beginning of the trail. On return, I got a CityLink bus from Fort William to Glasgow. I then stayed in an Airbnb overnight, and then the next morning I got another Avanti West Coast train from Glasgow Central back down to London Euston. So I wild camped each night except for one, which was spent at the Crianlarich Hotel on the second night. I'll go into more detail later on when I break down the trail map about where I camped specifically. So I brought a few freeze-dried meals with me to eat. I had quite a few freeze-dried scrambled eggs and also a beef and barley soup by Firepot. I also ate at a lot of inns and pubs along the way, and obviously got some supplies from a lot of the grocery stores like nuts and bread and things like that. So most towns and settlements will have free drinking water taps available. If not, you can always go to the grocery store to pick up some water. On the other hand, what I did was used my Be-Free water filter to just fill up from the streams when I was up in the Highlands. So the trail is incredibly well waymarked, but I would still recommend to take a map or a guidebook. The Cicerone guidebook is really good. I also had the downloaded offline maps on my All Trails, which were, incredibly handy as always. So I really enjoyed the second half of the West Highland Way as you start to move up into the Highlands. My favourites were Rannoch Moor and just before the Devil's Staircase as well. The first section of the hike was more walking through quite a few towns and also walking along Loch Lomond, which is fantastic and it's amazing in its own right, but I think it's just not the same as being up in the Highlands. So it's quite a decent distance, but the elevation isn't too bad. There's lots of other people on the trail, and as I said, it's well waymarked and it's easy to stock up on provisions. So I think that's why it's probably a little bit of an easier trail, particularly the first half where it's not too remote. For these reasons, I would definitely recommend this multi-day hike for anyone who's looking to start to get into multi-day hiking, or anyone who's looking to sort of do their sort of first hike in Scotland, and they're not really too sure in terms of what to expect. And they're looking for a hike that's not as remote as, say, the Cape Wrath Trail or the Skye Trail. So as you can see here, I have the West Highland Way hike, starting down here in Milngavie, which is just north of Glasgow, and coming up through here. So as you can see, Loch Lomond there, coming up into the Highlands a little bit more now, and all the way up here to Fort William. And as you can see, I got to a total of 166.9 kilometres, and as I said, I did around 5,000 metres of elevation. So what I thought I would do now is just talk about each day that I spent on the trail and sort of break it down and sort of show you a little bit more about sort of how I approached each day, I guess, and the distances that I covered, where I ate and where I camped as well. So day 0, I guess, when I arrived to Glasgow, I arrived in the city, and then I got the train up to Milngavie, which is up here, and then I did about an hour of hiking that evening, and I think I got somewhere around here. I did about 6 to 8 kilometres, and I just camped at a spot there. And then on day 1, I essentially went from that camping spot around here all the way up to Loch Lomond, to this section here. So this part of Loch Lomond, you're actually not allowed to wild camp. So I went on further, and I think it's a town up here. So Rowood Denon, again, pronunciation, apologies. Up past there is the section where you're allowed to start to wild camp. And And as soon as you pass the sign, you do start to see quite a few tents and people wild camping up there. So day one, as I said, Milngavie up to that wild camp spot in Loch Lomond was approximately 42 kilometres, so it was a big day for me at least. Not too much elevation though, which is why you can make it a big day if you're really wanting to push on to that wild camping spot in Loch Lomond. But as you can see, Milngavie is, it's like a small sort of town or sort of suburb of Glasgow. And as you can see, you sort of walk out of there, you start to walk through quite a bit of farmland, pass through a few nice cafes and things that you can stop off at along the way, a bit of road walking. So yeah, it's not so much I would call sort of being in the wild. It's, as I said, it's more going through some population centres to begin with, a bit of forest, a bit of farmland. And as you start to come up here, as you can see, you have your first bit of elevation. So you go up this small mountain and you start to get a nice view of Loch Lomond as you start to come up just over that ridge there. Lots of day trippers doing day hikes from down at this sort of lakeside town up the mountain. And as I said, I was sort of passing them on my way down. Got down to this lake, I got a bit of food from the grocery store, filled up my water bottles because there's lots of free water taps around here. And then I started the walk along Loch Lomond. Now Loch Lomond it's just a stunning lake, some nice scenery walking along here, lots of sort of forested paths, lots of ferns. It does start to get a little bit repetitive after a couple of hours though, I have to admit. And it does at some point become a bit of a slog, and I think this section of the West Highland Way is kind of known for being a bit of a slog. As I said, I got up past this town here. I'm not going to try and pronounce it again because my pronunciation is terrible. I'm sorry if you're Scottish and you're watching this. But as I said, you keep on going past here and you see a sign that says you're now able to start wild camping, and it was in this right there. Up around here on this little section here is where I set up my tent and wild camped, and you had a nice little view of Loch Lomond and just looking up into the Highlands up here as well. So that was day one, 42 kilometres, really big day. I was absolutely knackered. Had some freeze-dried meals here and then just crashed. Got up in the morning, got the drone up for a little bit, got some shots of the lake. And then essentially, just had brekkie and got cracking on after I had some coffee. So yeah, that was day one. So day two would see me go from Loch Lomond all the way up to the Crianlarich Hotel. Again, pronunciation, apologies. So this was the only night that I stayed in a hotel. Reason being, I was just absolutely flagging and shattered from the previous day where I did the 42 kilometre hike. And it was just, I don't know, around here there's not too much in the way of wild camping. There is a little bit more further on as you get into the forest, but by the stage I was at about 30 kilometres and I was just done, and I saw that the hotel had some availability, so I went down there, had a bit of a bougie dinner, which was I think I had some deer steak, which was delicious, and a bit of wild Scottish salmon, I believe. The hike is, going along Loch Lomond once again from here all the way along here, which again is, it's a stunning part of the world, but it's a little bit repetitive after a while. Stopped at the pub in Inversnaid, or the hotel, sorry, and got a coffee and a cake before I kept on going. And as you can see, as you leave Loch Lomond behind, you sort of follow this valley which sort of feeds into Loch Lomond, and you come up along here. Nice area, got some decent shots, just again sort of lots of farmland. You do start to have a bit more of a view of what's to come, looking out into the Highlands up here. And then I said, as I came down here and went into Crianlarich and stayed in the hotel there, which was end of day two. As I said, it was 31 kilometres. So day three would take me from the Crianlarich Hotel up here to just north of Inverowen, or Inveroven, again pronunciations, apologies. and this was a 36-kilometre day. Start to head up into the mountains a little bit more scenic, in terms of being in the Highlands and away from civilization, I guess you could say. So first section, you do leave Crean Larrick and you move through this forest, again moving through some farmland. I did stop off, I think it was at Tindrum, and I went to the pub there and got a meal there, a bit of an early lunch, and then just continued cracking on. And then this section was quite nice. There's a bit of, again, it's farmland, but you're sort of looking at these mountains on your right, mostly is where you're getting a lot of the best scenes here. As I said, weave your way through this valley and up to the famous Bridge of Orkney. Went past the hotel, crossed the river, and I had just a freeze-dried meal and a bit of a break here. There were quite a few people setting up their tents just in this section here, which is a spot where you can wild camp. There's water, there's bins and things. But yeah, as I said, I got there, it was about 4 o'clock, so you still had like another 4 or 5 hours of sunlight, so I decided to continue on to Inverurin. So yeah, you move up here through the forest, and as you start to come up here, it's a little bit more exposed and a bit more rugged, and I think I got some pretty cool shots with my camera and the drone, sort of coming over this ridge here and descending down to Inverurin. There's a hotel here at Inverurin. Inverurin, there you go. I didn't stop there. I continued on walking past here. A lot of people wild camping here. It's a very popular spot, but it was just too busy. There was just so many people here, and for good reason, because you have the stunning view of these mountains out here, this sort of valley. What's going on? But as I said, it was just a little bit too busy for me, so I continued on and just continued following this road for a bit, and then came up over this bridge. And there's a few houses here, and I just went left because it looked a little bit more isolated. Saw a path running down here to the river, followed that, and there was just this stunning little spot that I set up my tent at and wild camped at. Just like a great spot by the river, no midgies, a decent breeze coming through, and a pretty cool view looking out at some of these mountains up here, and the mountains on the other side as well, where they're up through here. So great spot, would recommend. And that was a 36-kilometre day, as I said, day 3. I was a little bit knackered by then, and as I said, my total distance at that point in time was 111 kilometres, so making pretty good distance for my time on the trail. Day 4 would see me go from Inverurin all the way up to just north of Kinlocheven. So Inverurin down here, and then all the way up through here, Kinlocheven there where the blue dot is now, and then I ascended up into this sort of valley area up here, which is where I wild camped. Really good day 4. I really enjoyed it, just purely because you're sort of walking around this Glencoe National Nature Reserve, which is just stunning. So as you start to walk and ascend a little bit up through here, and it's really where you get to this spot here, where you just have a stunning view of the mountains of Glencoe around here. I got the drone out, I got some decent shots with that, I got some decent shots with my camera as well. Just a really stunning day, and it only gets better as you sort of come over this ridge. I came down here, went to a cafe here, which is near the mountain resort, and got some cakes, I think I got a burger or something, burger and chips. And then you start to come down, you cross the road here, and I think it's around here where you start to get closer to the road again, which is where you just get this stunning view of Glencoe again. And just, I think it was here, this mountain here, which had this little house down at the base of it, which was just a stunning spot. Lots of people around here doing their day trips, but for good reason. As I said, it was just a really nice spot to be in. I think probably one of my highlights of the trip. And then we have the famous Devil's Staircase, which I did. I didn't think they were that bad, to be honest. It's not too much in the way of elevation. I guess in rough weather it wouldn't be too nice, but the day that I was doing it was quite nice, to be honest. So Ascended up there, great views looking back at Glencoe, and then also over onto this section of the trail, and you sort of come around here. You get to this spot where it starts to become a little bit more forested, a bit more farmland, and it's a bit of a slog, to be honest, coming from this point all the way down to Kinlocheven. Lots of people will camp in Kinlocheven. There's a camping spot there and lots of B&Bs and things, hotels, but I stopped at the co-op, got some food, and decided to continue on. So I continued up the path up into this valley up in here, and I believe I wild camped, right where the blue dot is now. The midges here were awful. It was the first experience I've probably had on the West Highland Way where I had any midges, and they were just insanely thick, like just everywhere. Setting up the tent and packing down was just a nightmare. I had bites all over me, all over my face. It looked like I had some sort of disease. It was a mare, to be honest. And I didn't have any sort of nets, I didn't have any spray. Classic me thinking I'd be fine and trying to go as lightweight as possible, but I think you absolutely need it. Take a spray, take a net for your hat or something, or for your face at least. Still just a stunning spot to camp, but the midges just made it an absolute nightmare. That was the end of day 4. 36 kilometers in total. Really, really good day. I think day 4, by far my favourite. Devil's Staircase and that Glencoe Nature Reserve is just stunning. Day 5 would see me go from this wild camping spot just north of Kinlocheven all the way down. As you can see, there's quite a bit of descending here to Fort William around there. And this day was, I think I was just a little bit exhausted at this point in time. I was coming up to 167 kilometers in total, and I think I did it in, as I said, 5 days, so I was just absolutely knackered. This 5th day was a half day, so I finished by about 12 o'clock. It was only about 26 kilometers, so I got up nice and early to make sure that I could finish. And it's quite nice. Again, you're still sort of walking through some highland area, especially through here. You can't stop for too long around this section because of the midges, but as you walk down, you've got a nice view of Ben Nevis as well, the tallest mountain in the UK, and then just coming down through to Glen Nevis here, so the valley, and then all the way around to Fort William. So as I said, I finished about midday or 1 o'clock. I got the bus from Fort William all the way back down to Glasgow, and that was it, to be honest. I had an amazing time on this trail. As I said, it's very well waymarked. There's lots of other people on the trail, and there's lots of accessibility to stores and grocery stores, especially in the first half of the trail. So that's why I think it's probably a good trail to do if you're just starting to get into multi-day hiking, or you haven't done any sort of hiking in the UK or Scotland before, and you're looking for a good sort of introductory multi-day hike. So especially the second half, it's my favourite. That's when you're in the Highlands a little bit more, better mountain scenes and things like that, and just feels a little bit more remote. But yeah, as I said, a fantastic trail. Scottish people are amazing. They're just the nicest people in the world. I think it's one of the reasons why I keep going back to Scotland. Combining that with the scenes that you go through, it just makes it a really sort of well-rounded hike. So if you're considering it, do it. Would recommend. If you've got any questions or anything, just drop me a comment below, or you can always drop me a message in my inbox on Instagram or through my contact form on my portfolio website. I'm not too sure what my next hike is going to be. I've got a few ideas in the making, so we'll see where things go, really. But until then, guys, I hope you keep well. Thank you for watching the video if you've made it this far. And yeah, as I said, hopefully I will see you soon with another hiking video. Cheers, bye.